Hello, everyone. I am Claudiu Murgan, the host of the Spiritual Inspire podcast. Before we start, please give a thumbs up, share this video, and subscribe to the channel unless you've done it already. My guest today is Sheila Seppi. Sheila is a celebrated author, international speaker, multidimensional life coach, healer, regression therapist, shamanic practitioner, and spiritual teacher. She is a soul exchange walk-in. She entered the body of a 30-year-old mother with 3 children and was instantaneously healed from documented illnesses and took on a new personality with spiritual gifts and memories she didn't even believe in. Her life was immediately transformed and she has never been the same. Sheila is the founder of the Conscious Awakening Network, the Galactic Alliance, Spirit Way Ministries, and podcast host for Conscious Awakening series with Sheila Seppi and Cosmic Conversation. Sheila, thank you very much for joining my show today.
Yeah, thank you for inviting me.
It's
It'll
been a
be
while.
great.
Yeah, it's been a
Yeah.
while. For those who don't know what walk-in soul is, and by the way, you are my third guest that remembers being a walking soul. Let's refresh everyone's memory on this concept, please.
Well, sure. For me, a walk-in is when one soul leaves and another soul enters. So in my situation, the natal soul of this body actually left because of illnesses, and the host body would have died had I not stepped in. So that was a total exchange, soul exchange. But there are other types of walk-ins, but that is the traditional type of a walk-in.
Interesting that there is even a TV series, I think it's on Netflix, about this type of walking souls in specific instances, especially in the army or spy world, where they have special missions and they come in and they have to deal with very tough situations. And it's interesting that even the movie world, the Hollywood and the entertainment industry caught up with this type of concept, and they're willing to portray it in movies.
Right. If they accurately portray it, that will be wonderful.
Yes. So in other words, you had a contract at one point agreeing to come in as a walk-in with a specific mission and take over the body and the life of the previous soul. Is that correct?
Yes, that is correct. Prior to the walk-in, this body was very, very sick and had an entire host of documented illnesses, including bone cancer, brain tumors, fibromyalgia, chronic fatigue, used to walk with a cane. The list goes on and on. And then the body went to bed that way in a lot of pain. But what happened about 7 o'clock that one morning, it felt as if someone reached down, grabbed me by the hair of the head, pulled me bolt right up in bed, and it was like lightning ran through my body. And then I was in white space. And I don't know how long I was in white space, but when I came to myself, the peripheral vision came in first and then the frontal vision. And when I came in, I had memories of past lives, of universal teachings that I couldn't even understand. It's actually taken me like 25 years almost to unpack all that information. But there were so many things that I started remembering that I really did not believe in. And if someone had told me in that instant that I was a walk-in, I would have probably laughed at them because that was not within my vocabulary. As a matter of fact, I had never even read a metaphysical book. And someone had told me about Shirley MacLaine's book at that time, Out on a Limb, and I just laughed at them. I said, reincarnation is just a bunch of hooey. That's how limited I was in my belief systems. But when I came in, the body was instantaneously healed. Everything about me was changed. My personality was changed. My memories were changed. The way I articulated changed. All of my relationships fell away. Within 3 months, I left the husband that I was married to, moved to a different state within another 3 months. And that's where I met my first spiritual teacher by accident. I actually was looking for a psychiatrist because my background was psychology. And I was sure I was having a psychotic break because I had no reference for anything that was happening to me. And over a series of meetings, she told me, she goes, I can find no evidence of psychosis. You're as sane as the next person, which is not saying a lot. But she said, what I'd like you to do is to start to come to these meetings that I have. You're welcome to come. You don't have to, but you'll get to meet other women, and we're studying spirituality. And come to find out, she was of Hopi lineage, and she became my first spiritual teacher. And it was there that I learned about spirit guides. That thrilled me to death because it's like, oh, all those people walking around in my house are my spirit guides, or they're disincarnate souls. All those people talking to me, giving me direction, those are my spirit guides. And so then the next thing was I learned how to shamanically travel, to go into the lower world, the upper world, even into the middle world. And it was there that I really began to solidify my relationship with what I now call my collective. Because when I came in, I didn't just come in as a single soul aspect. I came in as a collective of beings. So if this is your oversoul, you can be having lots of different little experiences all at one time, but mine had all come back together. And so it was actually aspects of the oversoul that was coming in. And at first, in order not to fry the biology of a sick body, there was just drip, drip, drip. The first aspect that started coming in was the Arcturian soul, because the previous soul to this body had been Arcturian, and there was a framework, so to speak, laid within the spiritual bodies. And so it made it easier for me to come in without frying the biology. But over time, as everything began to be switched out, and as I fully inhabited the body, then more of the collective of who I truly am began to come in. And now I operate primarily as an Andromedan aspect. But it depends on the situation. It's kind of like the soul energy comes in and out depending on, really what is needed. And so when this soul, the original or the natal soul to this body left, and I came in, just like with any other walk-in, you have to agree to, number one, take on the karma of that soul. Number two, you agree to finish out any unfinished business. And then you have to get all of that cleared out before you can fully step in to the body. Well, this person must have been a mess because it took me about 12 years to get everything unwound, healed. But the body was instantaneously healed. And of course, the doctors had absolutely no medical explanation for it whatsoever. If I were a doctor, I would have been studying me, but thank God they didn't. I think there was like this protective shielding or something around me. But, throughout all of those 12 years, more and more information would come into me, and I would work more and more with my collective. And when I first came in, within just a few years, they kept telling me, go bigger, go bigger, go bigger. And I thought that meant I personally had to go bigger, not that my concepts had to go bigger. And from that, I would learn more modalities, or I'd invite more people to work out of my office, or I would have events, or I wrote the book. I did all of these things with them still promoting me to go bigger until I developed the Conscious Awakening Network. And the Conscious Awakening Network is a platform where we host, I think, some of the best speakers, some of the best interviewers, including yourself, on this platform. And we're on over 40 different platforms. And in less than a year, because we actually didn't start wholeheartedly our marketing efforts until like 4.5 months ago, we already have over 400,000 listeners and watchers every month. And we're on just about every platform that's out there. Fortunately, for the last year, I haven't heard go bigger. I've got my fingers crossed, but just as soon as I feel like I've leveled out, like I've done everything they want me to do, because really, when I came in, I'm very mission oriented, and everything about me is about being a way shower. And the Conscious Awakening Network allows me to do that. I also work one-on-one with people to help get them ready, because I am supposed to help people to spiritually awaken, help to support people already on their path. And also, then I begin to nurture people and get them ready for the ascension process, whatever that looks like for them.
Yes, so many things to unpack. You are going so fast through all these items, so I'll go back to at least a couple of them. And one is that you mentioned you moved to a different state and you went to a psychologist, which was of a Hopi lineage. And it's very
Yes.
interesting because a guest of mine, like I interviewed in December, she also had a breakdown being an IT professional, and she didn't know what's going on with her. And she went to a psychologist, which happened to have studied in Tibet and in India. So the guy had the background, and she
Yes.
didn't categorize her as crazy. And they worked together, and she cleared her mind and became an amazing, wonderful teacher as well. So, what is the likelihood that out of thousands upon thousands of psychologists, both of you went to the right one who was able to understand what you are going through? That's quite unbelievable.
It is, except for the fact that when we came in, there were certain things put into motion. And even my 23 years, 24 years of being here, all of the doors are open for me, and I just have to walk in. There is no coincidences. And there is, no really, there are synchronicities, but the synchronicities are showing you that you're on the right path. Now, for me, when I was looking for a psychologist, I opened, of course, we didn't have Google then. So I opened up the telephone directory. And honestly, it was like one of those movie scenes where the light comes down and something's illuminated and it's like, ta-da, kind of thing. So it was, all I saw was her business card, or the business card sized ad in the back of the phone directory. And I just picked it up and called her. How did I know? Well, I was following my gut. I was following my intuition. I was actually being led by my collective.
Yes, indeed.
As I'm sure this lady was as well.
For sure, for sure. And you mentioned that you had to leave your, previous husband and shed certain relationships. But in the end, have the family of previous Sheila Seppi understood who you are and came to terms of who you are today?
I'm not really sure they're 100% there, but because when I came in, the memories of the old soul really had nothing to do with me. I didn't retain a lot of those. I did have certain memories of the children. I had certain memories growing up. That was it. So it was like a handful out of a basket, okay, of memories. When I would go back and visit with my family, my mother immediately noticed I didn't know these people. I went to a funeral. I didn't even know the family. I didn't even know my own family. I didn't even know the people I had gone to high school or college with. And they would come up and talk to me, and then in a minute they would say, "You don't even know who I am, do you?" And I'm like, "Oh yeah, we went to school together." And they're like, "No, we didn't." Or I'm like, "Oh, okay, well," and my mom noticed that. And she said, "I need to have a talk with you." And she sat me down on the couch and she said, "I want you to go make a doctor's appointment." Now, when she said she had to talk to me, let's go sit down, I thought she was going to tell me something horrible, like I've got this horrible disease or something. But instead, it was like, "You need to go see a doctor. I think you have the beginning stages of Alzheimer's." And I just burst out laughing, because I'm like, "Oh my God, what am I going to do now?" And I said, "Look, I do not have the beginning stages of Alzheimer's, and I will tell you why I don't have the memories that I do. And I said, you remember I used to be a very sick person? Yes. You remember all of a sudden I was instantly healed? Yes. I said, what happened in that moment, the old soul left and a new soul came in, healed the body, and here I am. And she sat there quiet for a moment and she goes, does that mean I'm not your mom? And unfortunately for her, I said, no, it does not. I said, I said, actually, you're still my mom, but only to a new and improved version. And she said, okay, never talked about it again. With my dad, I didn't tell him until the day before the book was released. And I told him, I said, this the book I'm writing, and when it's released, there's going to be a lot of stuff in there that you find hard to believe. He thought it was about extraterrestrials or UAPs or something like that. And I'm like, yeah, no, sorry, it's about walk-ins. And he goes, what do you mean? And I said the same thing. You remember when I was sick? Yes. And all of a sudden I was healed? Yes. I said, and you remember all of a sudden I became very psychic and clairvoyant because his sister had come to me and I gave messages, and the family loved that aspect. It's like, oh, all of a sudden this switch is flipped. Let's go ask this, and this. And so he goes, yes, I remember. And I explained to him just like I did to my mom. And he sat there and he goes, oh, that you mean when Jesus healed you and you were given the gifts of the Spirit? I said, exactly. We've never talked about it again. So they came to the understanding on their own level, and really for people who have family members that are not really going to embrace this concept, you really have to meet them where they are. Because I couldn't say, oh, yes, this soul is part of a collective. And I remember being in the Andromedan system. And I remember what it's like for the soul to leave and a new soul to come in. And I remember this. It would have blown their minds, So you really do have to meet people where they are. And even when I go home, I talk very little about this, very little. It's, what are we having for dinner? What's the recipe? How's the family? I try to just drop in where they are.
Yes, and I think this is normal, and I found that aspect myself, that when I talk either with my mom or someone else, and if I say something that goes ahead over her head, I will just change the subject and we move on to the next, which is much more down to earth, and everyone is happy. So I think that's the right approach.
Yes. I don't know, unless your goal is to come in and rock people's world, I think, which it is, or otherwise we wouldn't be here. But really, I think that meeting someone where they are and just really helping them to understand, because I know even with my parents, there has been a different type of awakening that has occurred with them. They no longer believe everything their doctor tells them. They no longer believe what they read in the newspaper or what they see on the television. They have this awakening about them that makes them much more aware than they were prior to our conversation. And so I think that one of the things that we as walking, and actually we as humanity can do, is to just drop these little nuggets or these little tidbits of information, because you never know how they're going to sprout and what kind of fruit they're going to yield.
Yes, we have to let them know that there are the possibilities out there, other options out there about the world, about the laws of physics and anything else. And then when they discover themselves, that will be amazing. There will be validation for them pretty much.
Yes, absolutely. One of the biggest conversations that I have to avoid is when we begin to talk about religion and how the planet came to be, because from my memories, it is nothing like the biblical memories, and I can't not remember what I came in with. I can't undo that. Part of the knowledge that I had was about a piezoelectric field that was being sent to the earth, that when it hit the crystalline grid, amplified, condensed the energy, and the frequency, the message that was attached to that frequency was then went through the crystalline grid, amplified, and then was stored in the collective consciousness of humanity. Well, the crystalline grid is also connected in with the crystalline structures inside the earth, including the crystalline ley lines. And so when that signal goes in, now all of a sudden it's being reflected up and it's being sent down. And so humanity was the recipient of that signaling. And that, in my belief, is where all of this false matrixing began to come into play. Literally there was a field 12,000 years ago that was created around the earth and around the planet. Some say it was to trap certain beings that were here, and yes, that's true. Some say that it was solely to be able to enslave humanity. And the way that they were doing that at that time was interjecting new DNA into the hominid species. And so, those are not conversations I'm going to have with my parents around the dinner table. But the exciting thing about it is now, with what we call the ascension process, to me, the ascension is, yes, we are shifting our vibration. However, the biggest thing that we're shifting is the DNA, because no longer is that piezoelectric field penetrating the crystalline grid, but it doesn't have to, because it imprinted into the DNA of humanity, and that has been carried from generation to generation to generation to generation. On top of it, then it's been coupled in with, say, family miasms. And that's why I believe so many people are now trying to heal their ancestral lineage. They're called to help to heal that right now. And when they are doing that, it's shifting the DNA. So our ascension is much more than just shifting a vibrational frequencies. It's breaking free of those DNA constraints that we have been under as well. And when we're able to do that, then we can transform into that new homeoluminous beings that will become.
Yes, and to take this discussion a little bit deeper, this veil of energetic veil you mentioned that was put around the earth 12,000 years ago, is it going to fall down? Is it going to be penetrated by the Andromedans, Pleiadians? They can still come through, or how will that play in our future?
According to the information that my collective has shared with me, that field no longer exists. But it doesn't have to exist, because now that field exists within our own DNA. And so it really, and because it was piezoelectric, I don't know how that would have had an impact on any craft coming and going. I know right now we probably have thousands of ships, different types of craft from different civilizations that are here monitoring, protecting, etc. Supposedly, there are meetings even right now that are taking place behind the moon that are going to have significant impact on Earth this year. And so I'm very excited to see the outcome of those meetings.
Interesting. And are the reptilians still an issue on Earth as for humans in order for us to move forward? Are they going to still keep us down, or at least try to keep us down and drag them down with them when they fall?
I think for people to kind of wrap their brains around this is to understand that the majority of the reptilians are now what we would call the Illuminati, what we would call all the underground civilizations or secret, groups and those types of things. But initially, the reptilians that were trapped here really became superior, not because they were superior beings. They had just been around a lot longer. They had a lot of a more broadening of a knowledge base than the current humans had, and therefore it was easy to dominate. And part of that matrixing was to actually, keep them trapped. And over time, that DNA that was spliced is also spliced into humanity. So we all carry a little bit of that reptilian DNA within us. But when we think of the reptilians, I think a lot of people are thinking of the Draco. And yes, they do have a presence here, but the majority of all of the Draco, what we would consider the bad Draco, have really been taken off planet. There's a lot of changes that have taken place that we are not really privy to. It's not like we're going to see this on the news. We're not going to see how all of the heads of the banking system are starting to resign. We don't see how all the CEOs of all these major corporations have resigned. And if we do, we don't start putting the dots together. But a lot of people have. And those people who have can see that there is this new opening. They can see that there is a much higher vibration that is moving across this planet. And as these, for a lack of better terms, corrupt CEOs, bankers, etc., step down, they're being replaced with people who actually have humanity's best interest at heart, as opposed to their own pocketbooks.
Yes, yeah, I heard that 2024 will be such a year when a lot of big wigs will shed away, will go into the shadows, and someone else will replace them. And also, talking about Ascension and Matrix, is it a fair statement to say that unless we change our vibration and our level of consciousness, we're going to still be part of the Matrix?
I think one of the interesting things is we all are living on Earth. Earth, which should be operating at a fifth density, but because of the vibration of the matrix has been brought down to a third density, we all reside within third density. Most people refer to that as 3D, and they're thinking 3D is in third dimension, but Earth is a third density planet. We all are here. However, we all vibrate at a different frequency. Okay. As we vibrate, the truth is there are no such things as densities. There are no dimensions. They're just octaves, different levels of a vibration, higher and lower. But as humans, we need to be able to put our fingers on it. We need to be able to understand and to try to wrap our brain around these huge concepts. And so for our purposes, we'll talk about dimensions. So it's easy to, since everyone is residing in third density, some people still have a third dimensional perspective. Typically, people with third dimensional perspectives are more about the me. Everything is about me. The world revolves around me. I am my bank account. I am my friends. I am my house, my car, my whatever. Okay. You start to move into the fourth. That's where people start to wake up. People start to look around and say, hey, wait a minute. Maybe I'm not my bank account. Maybe I'm more than that. They start to wake up to the fact that, this doesn't make sense to me. I think I've been lied to my whole life. They really start to wake up. Then you start to move into that 5D perspection, and that's where a lot of people are right now, okay? But they're getting the 5D, which is more of the spiritually awakened perceptions, working to elevate to even a higher dimensional thought process. They get that confused with the density. And so they think everybody is still in 3D and that we're moving into 4D. What we will move into is when Gaia herself shifts her perspective and moves into a fourth density planet. Then that's when humanity holding this certain vibrational frequency, will shift with her. And then we become that homo luminous being, which means that we will still have these bodies, but we're much more etheric in nature. We move from that carbon-based being into a carbon silica base. And from there, we go into silica, and then we go in from silica to liquid light. And from liquid light, we go into pure light. And so we still have quite a ways to go, but we are really on the cusp of doing that because more and more people are waking up because of shows like this. More and more people are waking up because all of a sudden they go to bed one way and they wake up totally different. And sometimes people will confuse that with a walk-in situation, which they're so totally different. I personally believe that because of the amount of work that people are doing on themselves, that they're able to hold higher frequencies. And so they have these instantaneous spiritual awakenings. Well, when you have a spiritual awakening, it's very similar to a walk-in situation because everything in your life is changed. And so I think that's what's happening. But I think that's because of all the hard work people are doing. People are also waking up to the fact that they're a star seed. Now, for me, when I use the word star seed, it means like you have, like with Vivian Chevet's case, she holds the energy of the Arcturian soul.
Yes.
Other people hold the energy of a Palladian. And those are pure star seeds because they are either projected or they wake up to the fact that their natal soul is from another planet. But then you have people that have collective souls like what I have, and they wake up to that multidimensionality of themselves. And yes, I identify as Andromedan, but I also identify as Arcturian. I identify as Elohim. I identify as all these other experiences that I've had, including, the Lyrans and the Palladians and everybody else. But these are because I've had multiple lifetimes there. Okay. And so that would be this multidimensionality that people are waking up to. And it's like, oh my gosh, I have lifetimes of here, but then also have lifetimes of here. And oh my gosh, they even have their past life memories, which means, guess what? You are also an earthling because not everybody's an earthling. Not everybody's from here, even though the bodysuit is.
Yes, and I mean, I just can imagine to have all these lineages and remember some of them or most of them, and then live such a mundane life here on Earth and say, "Oh my God, I'm going nuts. I need something much more exciting." Or you can just yell from the top of your lungs, "Look, I'm here. I can help you. Come over." It's interesting.
And that's part of what the Conscious Awakening Network is about, because when my collective kept telling me to go bigger, go bigger, go bigger, go bigger, and I understood that it wasn't just me, Sheila, that had to go bigger, that it was pulling everyone together and lifting everyone else up so they could go bigger. We all go bigger together because there's much more synergy in a unity of voice than it is for one person out there. Hey guys, we're souls in a body, not bodies with a soul. If we're all singing the same song, we create this huge synergistic ripple that goes throughout the planet and even out into, the universe. And so with singing that unity song, more and more people are starting to, kind of levitate towards that. When I first started the Conscious Awakening Network and the guy came to me and was telling me about it, it's like, oh, that's great, but why do I want to do that just for Sheila Seppi? I want more people in the sandbox to play with. And so then I started bringing more and more people on. Well, other people are doing that in other ways. They're bringing more and more practitioners into their business so that together they can lift that vibration. They're inviting more and more people onto podcasts to get more voices out there. So I think that a lot of us are here, on a mission, whether we know it or whether we don't. But the fact that we're here at all means that we have a very, very important role to play, or we wouldn't be on this planet at this time.
Yes, we know it's a mission because very few of us, make a living by doing this type of podcast. We are
Right.
doing it because we feel like we have to empower
Yes.
others, wake up others. So it's just a hobby, and again, in the end, it's a mission, as I said,
Yes.
to move forward on this in this direction. And you mentioned the transformation of Gaia. Is there anything we should be aware of when this transformation take place from a, let's say, natural point of view, not necessarily a spiritual one?
Mhm. My personal belief is when Gaia makes her transition, that has to do with the 3 days of night that so many different traditions talk about. I personally believe, and Kiara Windrider is a good friend of mine, and we have talked at length about this, and I truly share his philosophy, which is based in very rich tradition. And the thought is that when this shift occurs, everyone will be asleep. Now, we can say asleep means a permanent long term sleep, or we can think that the sleep is temporary. But what happens during that time is the physical that we see right now. This is the densest of what we truly are. Everything that we truly are operates within the cellular structure, within the solar plexus, the heart, and out here. Okay? This out here is what my collective called the spirit. You know, we have this little bit of higher self that comes in when it connects to the body. That's the soul. But the spiritual bodies out here will literally lose the electromagnetism that holds them together, and they will all come apart. And they will shift and they will change to the new vibrational energy that Gaia has, and they come back together in Earth time. That takes 3 days. And that's what a lot of people talk about with that 3 days of night and darkness. A lot of other people say that when it happens, it's instantaneous. A lot of other people say we're going to have this solar flash. A lot of people say no, it's when we have all of the extraterrestrials and the ships land and we're going to go off planet and the earth is destroyed and then we're brought back. Everyone has their own perspective. But from my point of view, I tend to go with what Kiara talks about. And that is those 3 days of darkness where we all make this transformation. Now, some people, this transformation will not affect 100% of the population, but no problem. It's not a race. We will all get there eventually. It's whatever our soul has planned for us. Okay. Now, one thing I want to say with having some of the memories that I have, bringing them in, we do not just sit around on a cloud drinking cappuccino all day. That's boring. And we do get bored. And we want to incarnate to have experience. And I have worked with some people who come from the archangel realm that have incarnated directly into a Draco for the difference of experience. But it usually only takes those souls 1 or 2 cycles in order to wake up and say, okay, wait a minute, I got it. I know what it's like to be ultimately evil. And then they go to something else. But when we incarnate, it's because we have chosen to incarnate. We have 100% full control. And on the other side, and you alluded to the birth plans, when we have our birth plan, it's like A, B, C, and D is going to happen. Now, we might get from A to B this way, or we might go this way or this way. That's where our free will comes in. But we're going to go from A to B. We're going to go from B to C. And these are like landmarks. These are events that our soul says, I want to learn compassion. This lifetime, I want to learn compassion. Okay, great. We're going to give you opportunities to allow you to extend compassion to others. Now, that's a toughie because compassion might mean that you have to forgive people for the worst atrocities that we could even begin to imagine. It also might mean that we want to give them compassion just because they're the most wonderful, loving beings in the world. We don't know how that's going to show up, but everything in our life is about the experience. And that's all. But we get so attached to the experience. So when we shift from this experience to the other experience, I don't think anyone knows for sure exactly how that's going to happen, because we have so many different perspectives. Some things make sense, some things don't. Some things resonate, some things don't. My collective has just assured me that there will be this shifting, and the shifting can be an actual shift of Gaia as she shifts her consciousness, because, as I said, she is a seventh density being. Okay, so once you get past the sixth density, that is your last physical incarnation. When you move to the seventh, that's when you begin to be pure consciousness. And Gaia was pure consciousness preparing to move into the eighth. Well, what is the eighth? That's when you get to put your consciousness into a star. So you go from the planets to the stars to the galaxy to the universe to source to reincarnate and start it all over again. But we're talking about billions of lifetimes in those types of cycles. And sometimes there are beings that really stay on the other side and choose not to incarnate into any kind of a form, human or otherwise. And they serve the way that they learn, the way their souls expand is by assisting others as a guide, as a collective member. But in my case, and in a lot of other people's cases, that collective, those guides are actually aspects of myself that have come back together. And in a way, when this shift happens, that's what happens for all of us. We have more of who we are coming back together so that we can have a much higher vibrating experience.
Fascinating. And yes, when we incarnate here, you mentioned compassion as a way of experiencing this particular lifetime. And it's all about being in service in the end. I think
Yes.
no matter in what capacity we come, if we do a certain type of service, I think we are going to move forward and upwards spiritually, with an open heart and unconditional love. That's the most important thing. If we realize, even at the basic level, that will take us much farther ahead.
Yes. And, you know, on this planet, we have the law of one teachings that come in through Ra, which, of course, is from the Arcturian collectives. And those teachings are all about that oneness and how we are a body-mind complex. That's all we are. We are the vehicle only. And so how this vehicle expresses itself and how this vehicle grows, that's kind of left up to us. But there are so many beautiful documents that really can help humanity along our pathway and give us all of these little golden nuggets, like the law of one, or, you know, some of the ancient teachings from different cultures. There's so much rich information out there that I think that, you know, if we just understand that everything is for the experience, it really doesn't matter how that experience shows up. It really doesn't matter if there's a solar flare. It really doesn't matter, because this is all just, I mean, truly, it's just a holographic projection of our own collective conscious agreements. Yes, there is a planet. Yes, there's a desk, and here's a computer. Yes, that's true, but we've all agreed on that. It's a vibration that's come together in a certain manner. So if we, as a planetary system, using our collective consciousness for the good, all come together on an agreement that our planet is transitioning, that our planet is going to be free of pollution, that our people are going to be disease-free. If we all think the same thought, it happens instantaneously. The issue is getting us all on the same page.
Yes.
Therein lies the problem. Let's all get on the same page. Well,
And
whose page are we going to get on?
yes, and we have to always remember that we never die. We just
Never.
get out of this experience and decide if we want to come back for another one and go through the same process, but we never
Right.
die. And I think if this concept will be understood by a lot of people, their hearts and minds will be put out of at ease for sure.
Yes, absolutely. I can assure you, we do not die ever, 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 ever. And we also continue to progress in our soul's development. And that is dependent upon what kind of an experience that we want. Earth, it's a pretty hard experience. Now, there's duality throughout the solar system and universe, but here, the duality is like in your face kind of duality. And it's very, very difficult. Just imagine coming from a place where it's total peace, total joy, everything is unconditional love into a planet with all the distractions and everything, but we wake up anyway. We remember who we are anyway. It's kind of like we're playing hide and seek. We send an aspect of our soul down here, and it's like, okay, how long is it going to be before we wake up and remember who we really are? And that's what's happening. People are waking up, and that's the exciting thing.
Yes, Sheila, you mentioned a clean Gaia. In your opinion, are we going to see any amazing technologies anytime soon? Technologies we can use to stop using oil and gas and dig for more precious metals?
Well, those technologies already exist. Now, whether they're ever released to allow people to utilize them, that's going to depend on who stays in power. And a lot of people, a lot of beings, a lot of energies are saying that, for lack of better terms, the light has already won and that things are really being cleaned up right now, and these technologies will come out. There are, med beds in the process of being manufactured. There's already med beds that exist. The military's been using them. I mean, there's so much out there that if you think about it, it's like, makes you want to pull your hair out. Why are people sick? Well, because there's a healthcare. Okay.
Yes.
And there's money to be made. Why do you want to make people well? You can't profit from them. And so, as long as that power structure remains, which I believe it is in the process of all changing hands, when it changes hands, yes, we're going to have all the technology that we need, but we also have to be aware there's technology out there, even right now, that's being prepared to be introduced that will allow people to have a chip placed in their brain that will give them instantaneous access to everything that's available through the internet. People will be able to talk on phones just by touching the side of their face. People have to decide if that's the kind of existence that they want to have. As for me, absolutely not. But there may be some people. Let's look at people who have had arms or legs cut off that all of a sudden now, through technology, can benefit. So it's not that all technology is evil. It just depends on how it's utilized. As for me, I've got enough stuff rolling around in my head. I don't need the knowledge of the world, because that's one of the beautiful gifts when you come here. You get to play amnesia for a while. People come to me all the time and they're like, oh, I just want to see. I'm like, no, you really don't. What if you saw everything that literally is here? I was given a glimpse of it. I'm like, okay, never mind. I see what I need to see, but to have that access where you see everything through all of the dimensional layers, it could be that in another dimension, a train's getting ready to run right through your body. We would be totally freaked out. And if you heard all the conversations that are going on around you, thank God mine are very targeted. I hear what I need to hear. We don't want to hear that. I always tell people that knowing, that inner knowing that you know beyond a shadow of a doubt is the best thing, because our eyes can deceive us and our ears can trick us. We can think we heard something and then it gets translated differently in our brain. And that's why even when I see and hear things from my guides, I'm like, okay, now wait a minute, let's break this down, because I want to make sure I've got something before before I speak it. So that knowing for people is phenomenal. And one of the beautiful things is when we come here, we do get to have that veil of forgetfulness. And then the fun is the discovery of everything that we already know. And the
Yeah.
spiritual awakening is embracing that which we already are. And so, don't be in such a hurry, is what I tell people all the time. Enjoy this. The team, my healing team that I work with, the Andromedans, Arcturians, and Angelics, gave me a healing technique that works in the biofield of our bodies and helps to heal what they call the ley lines. And so I see them performing this on one of my clients, and I'm watching what they're doing. And I heard them when they said, now we're going to teach you about the ley lines. And of course, me being me is like, no, we call those meridians. And they're like, no, we're talking about the ley lines. And I'm like, no, we call those meridians. And it's like, no, we're talking about the ley lines. And then they taught me this entire healing process whereby they go in and tweak all of these layers of frequency that we actually are, this holographic being that we are. And the beautiful thing is, we are all shifting and changing. This field, this matrix that we are, is shifting and changing. And there are new frequencies coming in. There are new geometries that are being inputted and that we are assimilating into these ley lines. Well, I don't think that would be happening if life is going on with a humdrum pace. I think we're all ramping up for something extremely, extremely exciting this year.
Yes, I personally I can wait, and for sure I won't embed any chip in my head. I am okay the way I am right now with my processing power. Of course, I would like to think faster and see other
Course.
types of things, but that will come through my own effort and, if necessary, with the help of my guides, as you mentioned, that it
Yes.
happened in your case. So I'm fine with that.
Yes, yes, and I am too. But there is that technology that's out there, and that technology is very, very close to being offered to the populace. And for me, if the planet is already being cleared up, if the planet is getting all of, if you want to call them the black hats, we'll just call it that. If the black hats are coming out of power, the white hats are coming in. The vibrational of the planet is changing. Why do I want something inside my head that can be controlled from an outside source? Not happening. It's just
Correct.
not happening, not happening. So I do want to caution people that with all these phenomenal things that are going to come to light, really, go deep within yourself and ask if this is the direction that's going to be for your best and highest spiritual good. Because at the end of the day, that's all that really matters. We don't want to be eternal in this meat suit. We came here for a temporary experience. And we get out of this one, we get into another one, all for the edification of our soul, for the growth of our soul. If we're stuck in a body that is going to go on forever and ever and ever and ever, and our soul does not have an opportunity to advance, which there's a difference from the body being controlled from an outside stimulus versus an instantaneous or an upgrade into a different type of a being, then we're losing that opportunity for the soul growth. And so I just, tell everybody, think before you act.
Yes, thank you. That's a wise advice. Sheila, in the beginning, I mentioned that you're a shamanic practitioner. What's
Yes.
your favorite shamanic practice, and how do you work with clients?
Well, for me, the favorite thing that I do is I work with all the directional spirits and I obtain the information from them. But I am a ritual junkie. I love ritual. And people are like, well, you know that with the power of the mind, you can go through. And it's like, yes, but in ritual, you're stepping outside of ordinary reality. You're taking the time to find the right herbs, to find the right altar pieces, to find the right candles, the right color of your altar cloth. You're putting energy into that and you're building and building and building that internal ceremony so that when you actually hold ceremony, that energy is already vibrating and it's extending out. And then you're calling in those energies that can best help you to achieve whatever the goal is or the healing, whatever. Of course, working, soul retrievals. I love soul retrievals. I think it's so fun to go out and say, hey, what are you doing over there in the corner? Come on, come back home. I love working with soul energy, but I have to say ceremony, all the various ceremonies is really, it really touches me because I can see the vibrational shift that it makes in people. But at the basis of all of it, probably the most favorite is to watch people when they make that connection with their own spiritual team or their own guide. And it's like, oh my gosh, I actually heard them. Or, oh my gosh, that tree actually spoke to me. Or this rock actually gave me a message. I can't believe it. I love to watch that part of it.
Yeah, I like ceremony too. So I was privy to a handful of them, and it was quite amazing. And do
Mhm.
you use drumming, singing, plant medicine, anything in particular?
I typically use like rattles and drums. Sometimes we use different little bells as we're, building the energy. I am not a plant medicine ceremonialist. If people are looking for that, I always refer them in a different direction. And so for me, the ceremony is about dropping into the energy of that space, opening up and learning how to do that on your own. Now, plant medicine is a phenomenal medicine. And the way that I was taught, and this is just my personal bias, is it serves as a great catalyst to flip that switch. But if you want to keep that switch on 24/7, you have to do the personal work. You
Yes.
have to learn how to build your energy to that level to be able to maintain it. And there's nothing wrong with doing plant medicines. The plants have such vast knowledge that they can share. I have witnessed, been part of, and consumed, like ayahuasca and different things. And I asked my guides about it, and they're like, oh, yeah, go ahead and do it. Because I was like, yeah, I really want to do it. And so I did all of that. And then I'm like, is this something I need to maintain? And they just kind of went, it's a human thing. So I'm like, oh, if it's a human thing, I don't need to be doing it. So then I really started focusing on, okay, this is the experience I had here. Now, how can I maintain it? What personal work needs to be done? And really, that's what this life is about, is doing all this personal work to get rid of all this baggage, to change our cellular structures, to imprint purity from the soul instead of all the soul wounds that we've brought in or all the family lineage that we're trying to clear.
Yes, and by doing the work ourselves, we don't create dependencies, as you said, on
Yes.
plant medicine or other people, or yes, they can help us along the way,
Yes.
but at one point we have to stand our own feet and
Yes.
get there on our own. Yes.
Yes, yes. And, I'm one of these people, even in my business, I don't sell a single product in there unless I've tried it and understand it. And for me, I had to try all these different things in my life to be able to talk about people to be able to relate to them, because I do have a lot of people that come to me that I work with that are huge into the plant medicine, and they don't understand why they can't maintain that ceremonial feeling.
Yes, indeed. Sheila, on your website, I saw a section called Sisterhood. Would you expand on that, please? It's very interesting.
Yeah, it is. And so I get a lot of slack from the guys, but I love to work with the feminine energy. And so for the last 20 years, periodically, excuse me, periodically I'll take a break. Last year I didn't teach. This year we're coming back, and the sisterhood, we call this particular group of women the Wild Goddess Sisterhood. And what we're about this year is walking the path of the wise wild woman. And when I'm saying the wild woman, so many people are taught in society that you have to walk this straight and narrow, that if you're spiritual, you have to be a certain way, you have to dress a certain way. And I'm like, no, you don't. No, you don't. You come here for experience. Now, I'm not saying go out and do anything in the world that you want to do, but it's like, get in touch with your own original medicine. What are those gifts that you came in with? Don't be afraid to express them. And so we get together with a group of women, and a lot of the women are online, a lot of the women are in person. And it's just a great time that we can get together, that we just drop everything else. We don't come as a mother or as a healer or a teacher or anything else like that. We just come as women, and we grow together as women. Now, this first one, actually, I have one coming up this weekend, and I do them actually the first Sunday of every month. But the one coming up this weekend will be kicking off this new season with women. And so we're going to drop into the basics of ceremony. And so as I've been preparing for that, it just reminds me how much I love the ceremony. So I want to teach the women how to conduct personal ceremony. If you want to call in additional protection, how do you do that? What are some of the mechanisms? How are you taking care of yourself? Are you nurturing yourself? And that's the other focus that we're going to have this year is on body, mind, spirit. Next month, we're going to be focusing on like diet. And so we have an Ayurvedic person who's going to be talking to us about the different doshas. And then the next month, we'll be talking about something else. And so they're all independent classes. They typically go for like 2 to 3 hours, but this month it's like from 10 until 5, just because we haven't been together for so long. And I know what it's like when we get together. There'll be lots of talking and lots of hugging and lots of laughing and lots of sharing. And the sisterhood is all about just embracing the feminine energy and nurturing each other as women.
Beautiful. And we know that 2024 might be the energy of the feminine coming,
Yes.
raging back, and
Yes.
going up exponentially to
But
heal
it's not
Mother
just
Earth.
for women. It's
Of
not
course,
just for
of
women.
course.
The feminine energy is coming into men. More and more men are nurturing. More and more men are hugging each other and supporting each other in ways, they're not the Marlboro man anymore. I'm sure that dates me, but you can think of the cowboy on the rugged guy sitting there, the manly man. Men are laughing together, hugging together, being, dropping their selves. And there's a lot of men circles that are out there. And I think that's absolutely beautiful. So I cannot wait to see what this year has in store for us.
Yes. Sheila, what are the plans for the Conscious Awakening Network in 2024?
We are just growing and expanding. One of the things that has come about, there's been a real need for the hosts themselves, as well as other people in the community, to have like marketing services. There's a lot of practitioners out there. They've got these phenomenal programs, but they don't know how to get started, whether it's helping people to develop websites or social media marketing, taking themselves to the next level. We have all of those types of skills that are now available to help people. We're also looking at bringing in a lot more diversity with our host. And we have every Saturday, well, not every Saturday, almost every Saturday, we have been offering free events that people can take place. They can come and it's a webinar style, but they do get to ask the questions. And so we're just growing and expanding. We're already in about 40 plus different platforms, and we're bringing on more and more platforms. With the expansion of CAN at the end of last year, we now have offices in India, we have office in London, and we also have one in Switzerland. And so with that type of team power, they're bringing a lot of great ideas and expertise to the table. And now we're just trying to, figure out, it's kind of like in the stirring stages right now. We're getting ready to throw it in and start to bake it. And so, I just tell people we do have some exciting announcements coming out. So, keep watching.
Yeah, once again, congratulations for your hard work and for the team you put together. And we are approaching the end of the interview. Any final thoughts?
I just want, and I say this over and over and over, but we are souls having a human experience. We are forever. You never die. There is a die process, but we never die as the person that we know ourselves to be right now. And we are loved more than we could ever begin to imagine. And we're more powerful than we have ever thought that we are. And so if we can start to step out of all of our conditioning and embrace that which we already are, then we can create exactly what we want in our lives.
Indeed. Once again, thank you very much for your time, for all the work you put and the environment you create for us, the content creators. Thank you very much.
Thank you so much.
And to my viewers, please visit claudiumurgan.com, spiritualinspired.ca, get a free copy of my book, watch all the other interviews. They are on spiritualinspired.ca or on the CAN network. And until next time, love and gratitude.